Lee Cronin's The Mummy, the interpretation that almost was. Hello everyone, I'm author R.L. Raintree. This is Reels and Reads, where I give honest reviews and occasional spoilers. Listen, I knew going into this I was going to be grossed right the fuck out. I don't do body horror at all in any way, shape, or form, and I'm going to advise you that if you're the way that I am, not to eat before you watch this film. Maybe pop an Atarax or a Xanax or something to keep you calm, because the amount of snot. Give me a minute. The amount of snot, the amount of regurgitation. Okay, things that I'm so grateful we don't have smell-o-vision. I felt something in the back of my throat. I thought it was gonna, but I'm good. Aside from that fact, this film was meant to be Lee Cronin's interpretation of The Mummy, and I can tell you that it is definitely an interpretation of The Mummy. It does involve, as you could tell from the trailer, a young child named Katie who has been entombed in a sarcophagus. Her skin is wrapped in strips of fabric, shrouds, if you will, that have incantations and spells on them. The question is whether or not they were good spells, bad spells, what's the purpose of the spells, all of the things. So this is definitely an interpretation of The Mummy, but I have to say that that is the extent of the interpretation. You see, it takes place in Cairo at the beginning. They're there. The mother is working there. The father is a reporter, and he is looking to be relocated to New York. They want to go back to America. And so this being in Egypt, and again, the situation with, the kidnapped child being entombed, that's about as far as we go with the mummy, theme of it, and that's a really big problem, but I'll tell you about the problems later. I will say that this film is more like The Exorcist meets The Evil Dead, and I'm going to give you as much of an example of that as I can without spoiling it for you. I really don't want to spoil this film for people. It is definitely worth the watch. But in the way that it's like The Evil Dead, if you all remember The Evil Dead, the original and the remake, it involves a demon. And it does involve the demon, corrupting everybody around. It's able to talk to you through the walls. It's a demon, So in the way that this demon terrifies the house, terrorizes the people who live there, it's very much Evil Dead. And because Katie is not okay, as one would imagine, she's essentially being locked in a room, okay? Because she's survived the trauma. Again, as the trailer would suggest, she was kidnapped. They find her 8 years later. She's unwell. At the very least, she's unwell, but I'm telling you, she's also unwell because she has a demon inside of her. Again, this is where it is more like The Evil Dead than The Mummy. And just when you think that this is going to be a fantastic Evil Dead movie, it turns into The Exorcist for some of the same reasons. The demon possession, but now you've got to get the demon out of her, right? So it's definitely doing a far better job of The Evil Dead than some of the most recent renditions have been. And it's definitely the best reinterpretation of The Exorcist than all of these other, if Linda Blair wasn't in it, it was a terrible Exorcist movie. I'm just gonna let y'all know right now. But this would have revived the Exorcist franchise. I can tell you this. If he had decided to lean into this being an Exorcist film, the Exorcist franchise would have been revived. If this had been, another installment of the Evil Dead franchise would be back on the rise. As The Mummy, though, it falters, and I will get back to that, like I said, when I get to the things that I don't like. What I liked about this film was the dad. Just the way his character was written, and of course, the acting was excellent. This man is different from what we normally see with mothers and fathers in horror films. It's usually the mother that notices something's off, and of course, because she's a woman, nobody's listening to her, and, she has to make this great sacrifice to save her child. We've seen it in Poltergeist, we've seen it in The Conjuring. It's always like the mother is the target, but this time, there's more of a focus on the father-daughter relationship, and I think that was absolutely refreshing and amazingly beautiful, especially with the phenotype of a father that he is. He is aggressive, he is protective, he's not like a, super macho type of dude, but just in a way that you would want your father to react had you been kidnapped in a foreign country. The way he never stops, the way he was not playing about Katie, I loved that about him. And he never gave up. He never stopped looking, even when his wife was basically checked out and being delusional and believing Katie didn't need to be taken to a better facility for the proper care that she needed. He was being quite logical. He was also being quite loving and careful. He had a little moment of slip up, but I gotta say, I'll allow it. I'll allow it. There was a moment where the mom blames him because she came up missing on your watch, and he's just like, well, how did you not know some stranger was giving this girl candy? You were home with her all this time. I was with her the day she came up missing. But how do you not know she's got like 15 pounds of candy wrappers and a friend that talks to her through a fence? And I'm like, you know what? That's fucked up. But she started it, and you're right. You're right. I mean, what am I supposed to say to that? And don't worry, that's not a spoiler. So in order for this to have been the Mummy, we needed more mummy stuff, and we didn't get that. But what we did get was the father who was willing to sacrifice, the father who was willing to believe in the, I guess you would say, Egyptology that goes into it. He speaks to a professor. He, studies what's going on with the lore. He kept everything that people gave him for Katie, well wishes and cards and things. This father, I mean, honestly, this one could have been without the mother. I mean, I wouldn't do it without the mother. But if we had eliminated the mother, this story would have been just as strong. And we don't really see single fathers in situations like this. I mean, I think we saw it in, and I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was with Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and it was based on the Dybbuk box. I can't seem to remember the name of that film. So in a way, he was a single father because the parents got divorced. But this easily could have been a single father film. The way he loved his daughter and the way that this plays out, superb. Loved it. Now let's talk about the thing I didn't like. Again, this was supposed to be the Mummy. They're in Egypt. There's a mummified child, mummified alive, if you will. There's some kind of spell and things to get her in the sarcophagus and all of the things. And you need the professor to, translate things. All of that's fine. But that's the extent of it being the Mummy type situation. There were so many other things they could do to make it being something about the Mummy, but it's almost like the Mummy in and of itself, as a story, the originals and all of that, there's not much to the story of the Mummy. You gotta remember when this story was written. So you either have to come up with, more elaborate ways to embellish or inflate the lore around the Mummy, or you're pretty much done with the story. There's a cursed mummy, it gets out, it wreaks havoc, you got to get it back in a sarcophagus. It really is that simple of a premise. And so this film needed to be a lot shorter to only focus on that for it to be the Mummy, but it also needed to add a little bit more to the plot to kind of fill up the blank spots, the flat spots. So it really doesn't sell as the Mummy, but it would sell like crazy as an installment of The Evil Dead. Everything you need is right there. If you want it to be another installment of The Exorcist, it's perfect, especially when you consider how The Exorcist began in the desert and all of that sort of thing. It's a perfect spinoff for that. But as the Mummy, there just wasn't enough meat and potatoes there for it to be the Mummy. I saw where it was going. It almost got there, and then it made a wrong turn at Albuquerque. Now, that does not mean that made this movie bad. It is definitely an interpretation of The Mummy, but not enough to where it should have been titled The Mummy. You cannot watch this at home. I would tell you, you cannot watch this at home. You have to go watch this on a big screen so you can be grossed out in like 70-foot tall screen or however tall movie theater screens are. You have got to go watch this in the theater. The sound, bones cracking, flesh being ripped off, the toenail scene, oh God, the regurgitation. I need a moment again. Give me a minute. Okay. You need to experience that in the theater. I don't care how good your television system is at home. This definitely needs to be experienced in the theater, especially if you manage to get a late night showing like I did. Superb. Will really gross you out, and it might even keep you up at night. Wait, hang on, guys. I was in such a hurry to get out of here, I completely forgot to give you the rating. I give this movie 3 stars. I know that sounds bad, but it's not. 3 stars means it's worth a watch. I'm telling you, you really should watch this movie in the theater. But the reason I took down 2 stars, one was because it wasn't really enough of the Mummy to capitalize on that IP name. And number 2, there were some loose strings in there that needed to get fixed up, and it was just a little more grotesque than terrifying. I had to give it 3 stars. Just wanted to let y'all know that. So tell me, which interpretation of The Mummy have you liked the best? Have you seen this one? Please hop in the comments and let me know. And as always, thanks for watching.